Okay, well, we'll get started, and somebody comes in, they'll just pick up wherever they come in. Okay, book 9. This is probably one of the richest books of Paradise Lost in terms of language and actually the story. It is the climax of Paradise Lost. Um, and just for the sake of um, posing a question here, what is a climax in a story? This is something you probably hadn't had to worry about since high school, but yes, the point of greatest influence, or the turning point, or um, greatest action, depending on the story. And then basically, chapters or books 1 through 8 were the build up, 9 is the climax, and then 10, 11, and 12 is the falling action, or the denouement, or the conclusion. Um, so, book 9 starts off, no more of talk where God or angel guessed with man, as with his friend, familiar used to sit indulgent, and with him partake rural repast. Well, God or angel visited with man. Okay, there's no more talk of this. They're not talking anymore. In other words, he finished talking. Um, they used to sit indulgent. They used to indulge each other, and with him partake rural repast. Rural is literally in the woods, I guess. Permitting him the while venial discourse unblamed. I now must change those notes to tragic, foul distrust. So in the beginning, he's saying, I'm not going to talk any more of man and angels uh, discussing pleasantly the things that have happened. Now the story's going to take a different look, a different turn. Foul distrust and breach disloyal on the part of man, revolt and disobedience. There it is. On the part of heaven, now alienated, distance and distaste, anger and just rebuke, and judgment given that brought into this world a world of woe, sin and her shadow, death, and misery, death's harbinger. Sad task. Yet argument not less, but more heroic than the wrath of stern Achilles on his foe, pursued thrice fugitive about Troy wall, or rage of Turnus for Lavinia disespoused, or Neptune's ire, or Juno's that so long perplexed the Greek, and Cytherea's son. If answerable style I can obtain of my celestial patroness. Okay, let me go, before we get on to line 20, look at 1 to 19. So he says, on the part of heaven now alienated, distance and distaste, anger and just rebuke. So heaven is angry at the end of this book. Oh, hi. And judgment is given that brought into this world a world of woe, sin, and her shadow, death, and misery, death's harbinger. That's pretty straightforward. Sad task. Now he's talking about what's coming. Yet argument not less, but more heroic than the wrath of stern Achilles on his foe, pursued thrice fugitive about Troy wall. What's he talking about? The Iliad. He's talking about how Achilles chased Paris 3 times around the walls or the city of Troy before he finally caught up with him. He's saying that what I'm about to tell you is a more heroic tale than that. And then he compares it to other things, or rage of Turnus for Lavinia disespoused, or Neptune's ire, or Juno's. He's basically throwing the kitchen sink in there too. That so long perplexed the Greek, and Cytherea's son. And I have to do this. Let's see if I put it in there. If I didn't, shame on me. There it is, Cytherea, another name for Aphrodite and Venus. Okay, so you look at that and you see, okay, I know Juno, I know Achilles, I know Neptune. Who's Cytherea? Well, it's another name for Aphrodite, who is the goddess of love. Okay, here we go. If answerable style I can obtain of my celestial patroness, who deigns her nightly visitation unimplored and dictates to me slumbering, or inspires easy my unpremeditated verse. Yeah, so this is another invocation. This is the fourth of four. So essentially, he's saying, so my celestial muse comes to me every night, unpremeditated, so I have no idea what's coming, and whispers to me or tells me what it is I'm supposed to write. Since first this subject for heroic song pleased me long choosing. He's saying it's been a long time to get to this. So he's had this idea and he hasn't written it down because he's never been really inspired. So let's get back to that. Okay, her nightly visitation unimplored and dictates to me slumbering. She comes in his sleep. Since first this subject for heroic song pleased me long choosing and beginning late, so it's late in his life. He's basically calling himself old. Not sedulous by nature to indite wars, hitherto the only argument heroic deemed chief mastery to dissect with long and tedious havoc fabled knights in battles feigned. So he's saying before this, the heroic stuff was war. It was heroic battles. It was mighty deeds, things like that. Those were heroic before this. This is a whole different level of heroic. That's basically what he's saying. Of course, what I really like to point out is where he says, with long and tedious havoc, fabled knights. So I think he's tired of reading tales of knights and wars and all this stuff because it's tedious. The better fortitude of patience and heroic martyrdom unsung, or to describe races and games, or tilting furniture, emblazoned shields. Tilting furniture? Anybody have any clue what tilting furniture is? You ever heard of tilting at windmills? Okay, that's from Don Quixote, but tilting is basically jousting. So jousting furniture or tilting furniture is like a bench used to hold the lances, or it's stuff to do with a tournament. Emblazoned shields, impresses quaint, caparisons and steeds. All this stuff has to do with jousting. Bases and tinsel trappings, gorgeous knights at joust and tournament. Then marshaled feasts served up in hall with sewers and seneschals. The skill of artifice or office mean, not that which justly gives heroic name to person or to poem. So he's talking about, okay, so you have a joust, then there's a feast. That's heroic. Where's my, there it is. Me, of these, nor skilled nor studious, higher argument remains, sufficient of itself to raise that name, unless an age too late, or cold climate, or years damp my intended wing depressed. And much they say, if all be mine, not hers, who brings it nightly to my ear. There are self-deprecating jokes in here that are kind of hard to pick out, but I'll point them out to you. So, first of all, he goes, Me, of these nor skilled nor studious. Well, we know Milton's very learned. He's trying to lower himself. Uh, higher argument remains. So I still have this high argument. Sufficient of itself to raise that name unless an age too late, unless I'm too old for this, or cold climate. What does that have to do with anything? Uh, actually, it's a reference to Aristotle. I know. Who would know that? Aristotle claimed that cold climates produce stupid people. Here we are in Texas, so we're brilliant. So, yeah, Milton basically pokes fun at his age. He pokes fun at the idea that people in cold climates produce stupid people, so I must be stupid. Um, or years of work depresses his goal. So it could be maybe I've just been working too long. And it might be if the inspiration was mine alone and not hers who brings it to my ear nightly. So I would be too old, too stupid to do this if I didn't have my muse. Okay. Any questions on the first 47 lines?
I just want to make sure that I'm understanding who's speaking here.
Milton.
Okay.
So yeah, this is another instance of Milton starting a book with an invocation, saying basically at the very beginning he was saying we're going to talk about disobedience and Satan and all these high things. We're getting to the climax of Paradise Lost, and now he's asking for more inspiration. And he's saying, and he's kind of tooting his own horn or bragging, I guess, that what he's going to write about is more heroic than anything that's ever been written before.
And he's not literally saying that there's going to be future martyrdom in this story.
No, no, he's talking about better fortitude and patience. Oh, actually, yes, heroic martyr. Well,
I don't think he's trying to be literal. He's just saying
it's not literal. No.
Right. He's saying it was the emphasis in those stories that there was martyrdom and those type of things, as I guess to amplify the heroism. And so, but he's saying my heroism is going to be greater even than the martyr heroism of the past. I guess.
Well, I think he says the better fortitude of patience and heroic martyrdom unsung. The better fortitude, well, fortitude is strength. So it's a stronger thing to have patience and heroic martyrdom that's unsung. So it's better to have
Like a humble martyrdom.
yeah, humility, but in addition to that, it's true heroism to martyr yourself for a cause, depending on the cause. Anything else about the first 47 lines? I do like how he's kind of belittling himself in here, saying, hey, I'm not smart enough to do this. Honestly.
Is this the first time he referenced himself in the invocations?
No, every invocation is the poet invoking a muse. So all four invocations, he is actually speaking of himself asking for help.
I'm just trying to figure out why he I wouldn't say belittles himself, but he deprecates himself at this point of the story.
I think because of the nature of what's about to be told.
It's so huge.
It's life changing, it's earth shattering that I'm not worthy to tell the story if it weren't for the muse. Um,
This is also the first time I feel like is like literally quoting the Bible too. Because like up until this point, it's all been like things that have kind of happened in one sentence, as opposed to like a literal conversation, which does happen in Genesis.
well, that's a really good point in that, well, we did have other stuff that was pretty much right from the Bible when he's talking about creation. So there's that. But yeah, this is pulling directly from Genesis 3. This is expanding Genesis 3 50-fold. I don't know how many verses are there in Genesis 3 and how many lines are there. It's a lot. So okay, in lines 48 to 86. The sun was sunk, and after him the star of Hesperus, whose office is to bring twilight upon the earth, short arbiter twixt day and night. And now from end to end, night's hemisphere had veiled the horizon round. It's getting late. Satan, having fled from the garden at Gabriel's insistence, has modified his plan to corrupt man. He travels the earth for 7 nights, and Satan gets into paradise underground. He knows that paradise is being watched from above, so he goes underground. Okay, down to 87 to 113. This is an interesting idea. Him, after long debate irresolute of thoughts revolved, his final sentence chose fit vessel, fittest imp of fraud, in whom to enter, and his dark suggestions hide from sharpest sight. For in the wily snake, whatever slights, none would suspicious mark, as from his wit and native subtlety proceeding, which in other beasts observed, doubt might beget of diabolic power active within, beyond the sense of brute. Thus he resolved, but first from inward grief his bursting passion into plaints thus poured, more justly seat worthier of gods, as built with second thoughts, reforming what was old. So he's having a long debate with himself, because nobody else will listen to him. And he doesn't really come to a resolution, but he does make up his mind about who is going to be the instrument of the fall of man. And he finds the snake. And now, why the snake? Well, he says, because the snake is subtle. If he was to go in as a tiger, there would probably be some idea that there's something wrong here. But no, it's a snake.
I liked that narrative, that passage also. It's very interesting because typically we know that the snake was or the serpent was the tempter.
Mhm.
But this piece really I really enjoyed reading it because I thought, now that's very creative of him to lay it out that way.
Well, the creativity of
It's just
reading in Genesis and saying, and Satan appeared as a snake,
right.
to expand that and go, why a snake?
Exactly. That I.
And he's like, well, let's see.
This-
Hippo? No. Shark? Not practical.
Yes, yes.
Tiger? No, the fangs and all that. So snake.
creative of
Well, it could be a mouse. No, some people are afraid of mice. So, some people are afraid of snakes too. So, I guess this is before fear of animals. So, but yeah, it's like his decision-making process going through. Eeny, meeny, miny, snake. Okay,
Interesting.
I guess I should say serpent, not snake. O earth, this is Satan. O earth, how like to heaven, if not preferred for what God, after better, worse would build. Terrestrial heaven, danced round by other heavens that shine, yet bear their bright officious lamps light above light, for thee alone, as seems, in thee concentring all her precious beams of sacred influence. As God in heaven is center, yet extends to all. So thou, centering, receivest from all those orbs. In thee, not in themselves, all their known virtue appears productive in herb, plant, and nobler birth of creatures animate, with gradual life of growth, sense, reason, all summed up in man. So he's basically saying, oh, earth, um, how much like it is to heaven. It's very similar to heaven, if not preferred. For what God, after better, would build something worse. So he's saying earth has to be better. God already built heaven, and so you can only build something better after you build one thing. I mean, your skills just improve with practice. Wait a minute. It's God here. Satan's reasoning is a little bit flawed. That God needs practice. No, God doesn't need practice. This is terrestrial heaven, danced round by other heavens that shine, yet bear their bright officious lamps, light above light, for thee alone, as seems in thee concentring all their precious beams of sacred influence. What he's getting at here is, so we've got Earth, and then all this other stuff, all these other lights seem to be focusing on Earth. Who else had this thought? Well, I'm thinking in the story.
Oh, in the story.
In the story. Sorry?
I remember talking about this.
Might have been last week, might have been the week. I don't remember when it was.
Was it one of the angels?
What was that?
It was Adam.
Oh.
So Adam is basically talking about how small Earth is, and yet all the lights seem to be pouring their energy onto Earth. Here's Satan's reflecting. He's reiterating that.
I thought it was so interesting how he's kind of glorifying Earth so much in that passage, and himself in that he can penetrate Earth.
Yeah.
And disclaiming heaven because he cannot get into heaven. And he's, I don't know, in a very backwards kind of way, trying to exalt himself, I guess.
I can see that. Yeah. I mean, what he's doing here is what Milton is doing is getting Satan to act like Earth is just as good, if not better, than heaven.
Yeah.
So, and because I'm here, I must be good. Well, I don't think he ever uses the word good in relation to himself, but as God in heaven is center, yet extends to all. So thou centering receivest from all those orbs, talking about the light coming to earth. In thee, not in themselves, all the virtue appears productive in herb, plant, and nobler birth. So he's basically saying the light is necessary in that it's the virtue is from helping the plants grow and the animals and to grow in sense, reason, and it all culminates in man. With what delight could I have walked thee round, if I could joy in aught sweet interchange of hill and valley, rivers, woods, and plains, now land, now sea, and shores with forest crowned, rocks, dens, and caves. But I in none of these find place or refuge, and the more I see pleasures about me, the much more I feel torment within me, as from the hateful siege of contraries. All good to me becomes bane, and in heaven much worse would be my state. So he's essentially complaining about how good Earth is. Yeah, well, that's true. I mean, his most recent domicile was burning fire and ash and all that. So he's like, I could have walked around Earth in delight to walk through the hills and valleys, rivers, woods, plains, land, seas, and shores, and forest crowned, rocks, dens, and caves. But I find no place of refuge, and the more I see I feel more torment.
Separation.
Now he's here and he sees it. Why would he be tormented?
Separate from God.
Isn't that what he wanted?
In a twisted way, yeah, but he gets what he asked for. And
Yeah.
like, I don't really want this.
It's funny how those who don't want to be near God will get what they want. And
Well, and maybe it's the idea of he wants to rule.
yeah,
He knows he's not ruling on earth. So maybe that's another twist of the screw in him.
well, so he is called the ruler of the earth, right? The ruler of the air.
Not in this story, but
Right,
No.
I was gonna say not as of yet, not here.
Not yet, no.
Yeah,
But I mean, he sees himself as being an influence, but again, he didn't create it, it's not his.
right.
I think that's part of his lament. That as long as I live, well, which is eternally, this will never be mine.
I also wonder, because the whole point of him rebelling, like their eventual conclusion was like, well, at least we can like make God unhappy and like we can by rebelling, we're like making things worse. And then he arrives here and he's like, oh, this is like almost better than heaven. We inadvertently helped make this, which was the opposite of what I wanted, right?
Yeah.
So maybe that's also part of it of like, if I hadn't rebelled, then this even like this beautiful place wouldn't exist. So like my plan has been foiled.
But what did God say in the last book? God said, I'd have done this no matter what happened.
I guess that's true.
Does Satan realize that? Probably not. So, yeah, he could be lamenting the fact that, gosh, if it weren't for me, this place wouldn't exist. Keep telling yourself that. 139 to 178. Satan complains and worries that God will replace the fallen angels with mankind. Oh, indignity at 154, subjected to his service, angel, wings, and flaming ministers to watch and tend their earthly charge. He is insulted with the idea that this being that he hasn't seen yet could take the place of the angels, or he and his fallen angels. Man he made, and for him built magnificent this world, and earth his seat. Him Lord pronounced, and oh, indignity subjected to his service. Oh, well. Okay, so 179 to 204. So saying, through each thicket dank or dry, like a black mist, low creeping, he held on his midnight search, where soonest he might find the serpent. He hasn't entered the serpent yet. Him fast sleeping, soon he found in the labyrinth of many around self-rolled snakes, self-rolled, coiled up. Basically, he enters a brood of vipers. And he enters a serpent and he waits. Down at 192, now when as sacred light began to dawn in Eden on the humid flowers that breathed their morning incense, when all things that breathe from the earth's great altar sent up silent praise to the Creator, and his nostrils fill with grateful smell, forth came the human pair and joined their vocal worship to the choir of creatures wanting voice. The sun rises, Adam and Eve leave their bower, and they sing praise to God. How mad must Satan have been at this? So Eve speaks to Adam. She says, Adam, well may be labor still to dress this garden, still to tend plant, herb, and flower, our pleasant task enjoined. But till more hands aid us, the work under our labor grows, luxurious by restraint. What we by day lop overgrown, or prune, or prop, or bind, one night or two with wanton growth derides tending to wild. Thou therefore now advise, or hear what to my mind first thoughts present. Let us divide our labors, thou where choice leads thee, or where most needs, whether to wind the woodbine around this arbor, or direct the clasping ivy where to climb, while I, in yonder spring of roses intermixed with myrtle, find what to redress till noon. For while so near each other thus all day our task we choose, what wonder if so near looks intervene and smiles, or object new casual discourse draw on, which intermits our day's work, brought to little, though begun early, and the hour of supper comes unearned.
That is, you know what?
This
that
is full. This is full of
This
stuff.
is, what is it? The Bible says that the woman wants to rule over man.
But that hasn't happened yet.
It hasn't, but it.
Has it?
It's so entertaining to see him putting these little seasonings in here,
Mhm.
and you know the references, and she's already telling them, you go there, you do this, the honey do
Well,
this.
she's careful. She's careful not to say we're going to do this.
I know.
She is very careful about that.
It is
But
so
she has a really
brilliant.
good argument though. She's like, as long as we labor together and we tend the plants, herbs, and flowers, our pleasant task enjoined. In other words, we're doing this together and it's pleasant, it's fun. Yay. What we by day lop, cut, overgrown, or prune, or prop, or bind, one night or two with wanton growth derides, tending to wild. So basically, we cut this stuff off, and one or two more nights, it grows right back and it's wilder than ever. So she's saying as long as we're together, okay. She says, thou therefore now advise, or hear what to my mind first thoughts present. So she's saying, what do you think we should do? But let me tell you what I think we should
I
do.
know, exactly. So cute.
You, where you decide to go, where choice leads you, where you're most needed, whether to wind the woodbine round this arbor or direct the clasping ivy where to climb. So you go do your thing, while I, notice where she goes, in yonder spring of roses intermixed with myrtle. You deal with the ivy, I'm going to the roses. And this is before there were thorns on roses, I think. So she says, find what to redress until noon. So the work that we're going to do, we're going to work until noon, lunchtime. She says, for while so near each other, thus all day our task we choose together, what wonder if so near looks intervene and smiles, or object new casual discourse draw on, which intermits our day's work, brought to little, though begun early, and the hour of supper comes unearned. So she's saying, we can work dawn to sunset. But because we're together and we love each other so much, we're looking at each other, we're talking about, ooh, look at that, and there's distractions all over the place. They distract each other things distract them, short attention span, She's saying, this is why we should separate, because we're distracted when we work together. That's actually a really good point. But it's not a good reason.
I'm hearing these slight undertones, these undercurrents of division that will be carried out and incorporated into Satan's. He's going to use that as with us, we innocently make plans or do things, and Satan just uses whatever he can against us.
Mm-hmm. To whom mild answer, Adam replies. So Adam just very calmly, very quietly, well, dear, soul Eve, associate soul, to me beyond compare, all living creatures dear. Lay it on. Compare above all living creatures. Well hast thou motioned. That's a good idea. Well, thy thoughts employed, how we might best fulfill the work which here God hath assigned to us. Nor of me shalt pass unpraised. We're doing a great job. For nothing lovelier can be found in woman than to study household good and good works in her husband to promote. This is a different time, but nothing lovelier can be found in a wife to do work in the house and to promote her husband. Maybe in the 40s and 50s or in the
But that's
1670s.
Proverbs 31, right there. That's Proverbs 31 woman.
Was it Milton's first wife, the one that went back to the father?
Yeah.
So isn't he kind of projecting here?
Yeah, he's anytime Eve speaks or makes a suggestion, or he may be putting himself in Adam's place right here. There's this undertone of, I don't want to say bitterness, but he presents Eve in a way that he probably shouldn't have gone there.
Yeah, I mean, his first wife is exactly what he was saying here. We can be married, I'm gonna go over this direction, you go that direction.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost a little.
It's an important thing to point out. I mean, the more you know about Milton and the more you know about epic poetry, and when you read into this, you can see how Milton's life is put into the story, and even his political beliefs. Early on, we were talking about how they voted for something, and the question was brought up, wait a minute. Yeah, well, that was his political beliefs. Adam continues, yet not so strictly hath our Lord imposed labor as to debar us when we need refreshment, whether food or talk between, food of the mind, or the sweet intercourse of looks and smiles. For smiles from reason flow, to brute denied, and are of love the food. Wow. Love not the lowest end of human life, for not to irksome toil, but to delight he made us, and delight to reason joined. So he says God gave us work, but he wasn't so strict as to say you can't eat or drink. You know, at least get some refreshment. You know, when it's hot, I can't imagine that it got really hot. But he says he doesn't keep us from talking, which is food of the mind, or this sweet intercourse, the sweet conversation of looks and smiles. For smiles from reason flow, to brute denied. So basically, animals don't smile. That's just for us. God wants us to smile. To brute denied, and are of love the food. Smiles are the food of love. Not always, but okay. Love not the lowest end of human life. What in the world is that? I struggled over that for a little while, and then I realized the version that I had a comma after the word love. Does it have a comma in your book? Yeah, I looked in a couple other sources and there was no comma. I was like, now it makes a little more sense. What he's saying is that love is not the lowest form of human existence. He's basically saying love is not down here. Love is up here. For not to irksome toil, but to delight he made us, and delight to reason joined. So God made us not for irksome or bothersome work, but to delight. And delight to reason joined. So delight and reason are joined together. Another thing that the brute is denied. These paths and bowers doubt not, but our joint hands will keep from wilderness with ease, as wide as we need walk, till younger hands ere long assist us. Till younger hands ere us. What's the reference here? What are they thinking of? Kids. Hey, let's have kids so we can start to relax. Let them cut all these. So he's saying basically these paths and everything, this, we can chop this stuff down with our hands just fine together. It'll be fine with ease, as wide as we need. So he's basically saying all we're doing is we're making paths, and we can make them as wide as we need. So if we're going to walk side by side, or you behind me or me behind you, it doesn't matter. We're just going to do what we need to do until we have younger hands to help us. And then we can make them even bigger. But if much converse, perhaps these satiate, to short absence I could yield. So if much conversation, perhaps these satiate. Satiate is to be satisfied or to be fulfilled. So he's saying, if you've had enough discussion, I suppose we can be apart for a little while. He's backing off. For solitude sometimes is best society, and short retirement urges sweet return. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. For solitude sometimes is best society. Sometimes it's better to be alone. Sometimes you need to be alone. So he's kind of validating Eve's request. Come to think of it, I could use some time apart from you. What? But other doubt possesses me. Here we go. Lest harm befall thee severed from me. For thou knowest what hath been warned us, what malicious foe, envying our happiness and of his own despairing, seeks to work us woe and shame by sly assault. And somewhere nigh at hand watches, no doubt, with greedy hope to find his wish and best advantage us asunder. Ooh, okay, now he's getting wound up. So he's like, but I have this doubt, this lingering thought, because if you're apart from me, you could get hurt. I don't think there are many branches falling in the forest at that time, but he says, for thou knowest what hath been warned us. You know what's coming, what malicious foe, envying our happiness, and of his own despairing, so he despairs for his own happiness, seeks to work us woe and shame by sly assault. You know what's coming. We were told this is coming 12 times, apparently, or something like that. I mean, it's a lot. They've been told at least 4 times that they have to remain obedient and that someone is going to come and try to challenge them. And somewhere nigh at hand watches, no doubt, with greedy hope to find his wish and best advantage us asunder. So he's saying somewhere our foe is lurking about, watching us and waiting for us to separate. Hopeless to circumvent us joined, where each to other speedy aid might lend a hand, or lend at need. Basically, if we're together, he can't get around us because I'm here, you're here, we're together, we can support each other. So if he gets to you, I can say, no, don't. If he gets to me, you say, no, don't. If we're together, we're safe. Whether his first design be to withdraw our fealty from God, or to disturb conjugal love, than which perhaps no bliss enjoyed by us excites his envy more. Whether his first design is to withdraw our fealty from God. So if his first wish is to draw us away from God, that's one thing. Or to keep us from enjoying life. than which perhaps no bliss enjoyed by us excites his envy more. So what he's saying is, so this guy, he either wants to draw us away from God or he's going to keep us from being together because it bothers him.
That is also like the first commandment that God gave them though. So, right, to be fruitful and multiply.
Yeah.
So it's their loyalty to God or the thing that God commanded them to do, kind of.
That's a good point. Good observation. So it's either what God commanded or their obedience to God or God's command to them to multiply.
I think it's interesting that he doesn't think of the thing that they were told not to do.
Right.
Like, oh, he's going to stop us from the thing that God told us to do, as opposed to the opposite.
Right. That's a really good observation. Or this, or worse, leave not the faithful side that gave thee being, still shades thee and protects. You all know what this means, I know. I can see the smiles on your faces. So he's like, it's that or this, or worse, don't leave me. Don't leave my side that gave you existence. Did it? She came from there, but God gave her life. Still shades thee and protects. The wife, where danger or dishonor lurks, safest and seemliest by her husband stays, who guards her, or with her the worst endures. So he's saying a smart wife would stay by her husband for protection. Yeah. To whom the virgin majesty of Eve, as one who loves and some unkindness meets, with sweet austere composure thus replied. How does she feel about what he just said? No, this isn't right. She goes, you did not just say that to me, but a little bit nicer. Offspring of heaven and earth, and all earth's Lord, this is Eve talking, that such an enemy we have, who seeks our ruin, both by thee informed I learn, and from the parting angel overheard, as in a shady nook I stood behind, just then returned at shut of evening flowers. But that thou shouldst my firmness therefore doubt to God or thee, because we have a foe may tempt it, I expect not to hear. His violence thou fearest not, being such as we, not capable of death or pain, can either not receive or can repel. His fraud is then by fear, which plain infers thy equal fear, that my firm faith and love can be his fraud, be shaken or by his fraud be shaken or seduced. Thoughts which how found they harbor in thy breast, Adam misthought of her to see thee so dear. Ooh. She is not happy. But she retains her composure, her sweet composure. Oh, my darling husband, child of heaven and earth, and the earth's Lord. I'm going to butter him up a little bit, then I'll zing him. So she basically says, I know all this, but I never thought I would hear you doubt my dedication to God or you. She says, I was standing behind you in a shady nook, having just returned when the evening flowers closed up, but I never thought that I would hear you doubt my dedication. You don't fear him, since we cannot experience death or pain, but neither can we receive nor repel his efforts. You fear his fraud then, or your fear for me is that I will be seduced from my faith and love. This is something I never thought you'd say about one you love so much.
Conflict in paradise.
Yes. I think it's lost already. To whom with healing words Adam replied. Okay, I'm going to make things better now. Daughter of God and man, immortal Eve, For such thou art, from sin and blame entire. Not diffident of thee do I dissuade thy absence from my sight, but to avoid the attempt itself intended by our foe. He's kind of, whoa. Of course, he starts off the way she started off. For he who tempts, though in vain, at least asperses the tempted with dishonor foul, supposed not incorruptible of faith, not proof against temptation. Thou thyself with scorn and anger wouldst resent the offered wrong, though ineffectual found. Misdeem not then, if such affront I labor to avert from thee alone, which on us both at once the enemy, though bold, will hardly dare. Or daring, first on me the assault shall light, nor thou his malice and false guile contemn. Subtle he needs must be, who could seduce angels, nor think superfluous others' aid. Ooh, that's not bad. So, daughter of God and man, immortal Eve, you are free from sin and blame entirely. He says, I'm not shy about discouraging you from leaving, but I want to avoid any attempt by the foe, by our enemy. He says, the tempter will attack with great dishonor, even though it is in vain. Just because you have an incorruptible faith doesn't mean you can't be tempted. I mean, Jesus was tempted. You take offense at what I said, though that wasn't my intent. Don't misjudge me, for my intent was to suggest that if the enemy approaches both of us at the same time, which he would hardly even dare to do, even bold as he is, if he does, he will approach me first. Wow, egotistical? If he does, he will approach me first. His malice and lies you won't treat with contempt, since he will be subtle enough to seduce angels. And don't think mutual aid is unnecessary. I, from the influence of your beauty, receive access to every virtue. In your sight, I am more wise, watchful, stronger if I needed outward strength. So I just translated, but nor think superfluous others' aid. I, from the influence of thy looks, receive access in every virtue. I look at you, I get strength. Oh. While shame, thou looking on, shame to be overcome or overreached, with utmost vigor raise and raised unite. So he's saying why he would get stronger, because he doesn't want to look weak in front of his wife. He says, I wouldn't shame myself in front of you when I feel your presence. And shouldn't your test be with me present, the best witness of your virtue tested? So if we're going to be tempted, wouldn't it be best for us to be together so I can be proud of how you act? I don't know. So spake domestic Adam in his care and matrimonial love. But Eve, who thought less attributed to her faith sincere, thus her reply with accent sweet renewed. So Eve doubts Adam. She's doubting him before the fall. She says, if this is our condition, thus to dwell in narrow circuit, straitened by a foe, subtle or violent, we not endued single with like defense wherever met. If this is our fate, to be like this because of him, subtle or violent, we not endued single with like defense. So because we wouldn't separately have this defense, how are we happy? Still in fear or harm, of harm. But harm precedes not sin. Only our foe, tempting, affronts us with his foul esteem of our integrity. His foul esteem sticks no dishonor on our front, but turns foul on himself. Then wherefore shunned or feared by us? So she says, how can we be happy being in fear of such a foe? We can't be harmed if we say no to sin and Satan. His attempt to tempt us doesn't bring us shame, it shames him. Why should we shun or fear him? We would gain double honors by proving Satan wrong, or rather, double honor gained from his surmise proved false. Find peace within, favor from heaven, our witness from the event. So if we find peace within, we'll find favor from heaven, who will have seen this. And what is faith, love, virtue, unassayed alone, without exterior help sustained? Let us not then suspect our happy state left so imperfect by the Maker wise as not secure to single or combine. Frail is our happiness if this be so, and Eden were no Eden thus exposed. She says, let's not suspect that our happiness is left so imperfect by God as to not be secure when we're apart or together. Our happiness is frail if that's the case, and Eden is no Eden if that's true.
Paradise is no paradise.
We have to live joining the head. What's the point of living in this world?
Yeah. (342) to 375, Adam says that God gave them free will, and it's that will that will be tested. He says, testing will come. Don't seek it out. Adam tells her to go and rely on her virtue. So don't seek out the test, but go ahead. I'm going to pick up the pace a little bit because we're only a third of the way through, and we have less than an hour left, so half hour. Okay, moving on. 376 to 416. Eve tells Adam that she'll remember his words. She admits that she may be Satan's first target, but they part ways anyway. Adam isn't happy about it. What do we see? Adam has shirked his responsibility already. So Satan, as the serpent, starts to search for them. In bower and field he sought, where any tuft of grove or garden plot more pleasant lay, their tendance or plantation for delight. By fountain or by shady rivulet he sought them both, but wished his hap might find Eve separate. He wished, but not with hope of what so seldom chanced, when to his wish, beyond his hope, Eve separate he spies, veiled in a cloud of fragrance. Where she stood, half spied, so thick the roses blushing round about her glowed, oft stooping to support each flower of slender stalk, whose head, though gay carnation, purple, azure, or speckled with gold, hung drooping unsustained. Them she upstays, gentle with myrtle band, mindless the while herself, though fairest unsupported flower, from her best prop so far, and storm so nigh. Ooh. So Satan searches in shady places, open fields, or where any thick groves or garden plot where it would be pleasant to lie down. He sees Eve, and what is she doing? She's in the roses where she said she would be. So when she sees a rose bending, she gets some myrtle, straightens it up, and wraps the myrtle around it to keep it straight up. Maybe they're supposed to. I don't know. And then Milton compares her to one of those roses. She is the flower that's bending unsupported. And he said, well, what he says is, though fairest unsupported flower, from her best prop so far, and storm so nigh. So she's separated from her best support, which is Adam, and the storm is close. Doom is on the horizon. Nearer he drew, and many a walk traversed of stateliest covert cedar, pine, or palm. Then voluble and bold, now hid, now seen, among thick woven arborets and flowers embroidered on each bank, the hand of Eve. Spot more delicious than those gardens feigned or of revived Adonis or renowned Alcinous, host of old Laertes' son, or that not mystic where the sapient king held dalliance with his fair Egyptian spouse. Who's the sapient king? Sapient is wise. Who's,
Solomon.
huh?
Solomon.
Yeah. Where the sapient king, Solomon, held dalliance with his fair Egyptian spouse. So what he's saying is that Satan is searching, he sees her, and what he does, he follows her, but not straight. He doesn't follow her directly. He kind of winds around like a snake. And he's seen, then he's not seen, he's seen, he's not seen, he sees her all the time, and he's just creeping around. He is creepy. So 445 to 454, this is interesting. Much he the place admired, the person more. Satan admired the garden, but he admired Eve more. What's going on? Yeah, Satan is going, wow. He thinks he might be in love with her. Such pleasure took the serpent to behold this flowery plat, the sweet recess of Eve, thus early, thus alone. Her heavenly form angelic, but more soft and feminine. Her graceful innocence, her every air of gesture, or least action, overawed his malice, and with rapine sweet bereaved his fierceness of the fierce intent it brought. He sees her, he goes, weak in the knees. Oh, well, he's a snake, so there are no knees. But he basically goes, whoa.
Because this is
It's the first time he's seeing Eve.
Right. Yeah.
And I like how he says that she is her heavenly form, angelic, but more soft and feminine. Because as far as we know, all the angels in heaven are male appearing,
Yes.
but not necessarily gendered.
Correct. Okay.
Or are there? There could be an argument made for like when the angels came down and lay with the daughters of men.
Mhm.
That's not what we're talking about, though. Thankfully. That space the evil one abstracted stood from his own evil, and for the time remained stupidly good. Of enmity disarmed, of guile, of hate, of envy, of revenge. But the hot hell that always in him burns, well, before that line,
Right.
he looks at her and all the evil kind of leaves him.
Exactly.
He goes, whoa.
Yes.
And he feels what it feels like to be good.
Yes.
But the evil, the hot hell that always in him burns, though in mid-heaven, soon ended his delight and tortures him now more. The more he sees of pleasure not for him ordained, then soon fierce hate he recollects, and all his thoughts of mischief gratulating thus excites. So he sees her, he goes, whoa, wait a minute. There's a mission here. I need to get it together. He then, of course, there is a part earlier in the story where it talks about when Satan leaves hell, he takes hell with him. So hell is always in Satan. And I think God did it that way so that this sort of thing wouldn't really happen, that Satan wouldn't all of a sudden be good and go, I'm in love now. Life is wonderful. Wait. Oh, yeah. Thoughts whither have ye led me? With what sweet compulsion thus transported to forget what hither brought us? Hate, not love, nor hope of paradise for hell. Hope here to taste of pleasure, but all pleasure to destroy, save what is in destroying. Other joy to me is lost. Then let me not let pass occasion which now smiles. Behold alone the woman, opportune to all attempts for her husband, for I view far round, not nigh, whose higher intellectual more I shun, and strength of courage haughty, and of limb heroic built, though of terrestrial mold. Foe not informidable, exempt from wound I not. So much hath hell debased, and pain enfeebled me to what I was in heaven. So he says, uh, thoughts, where have you led me? What sweet force brought me here and made me forget my purpose? It's hate, not love. And then he just goes on and going, oh yeah, okay. All pleasure is to destroy, save what is in destroying. So while he doesn't like, he likes Earth, he doesn't necessarily want to destroy it, he just has to. And he says, and now Eve's alone. And I look around, but I don't see Adam. And that's good because he's smarter, stronger, very heroic. He's not informidable. So he's a good foe. He's a worthy challenger, if you would. I think he esteems Adam a little too highly here. Exempt from wound, I not. So he can be hurt. So much hath hell debased, and pain enfeebled me to what I was in heaven. So I can be hurt. I'm not what I was in heaven. She fair, divinely fair, fit love for gods, not terrible, though terror be in love and beauty, not approached by stronger hate, hate stronger, under show of love well feigned, the way to her ruin now I tend. So he's going, okay, it's time to get to work. He still looks at her, goes, okay.
Yes.
494 to 530. So Satan makes his way to Eve, careful in his approach, not to frighten her. And the way Milton describes him, he said, the serpent has grown uglier. He's got carbuncles on his eyes. I'm not entirely certain what carbuncles are, but I know it's, sorry?
Those are guns, aren't they?
They're kind of precious stone. I don't know.
I thought they were like sores and pustules and.
Oh, they're either disease or they're precious stones. I think they're both.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so yeah, carbuncles are like abnormal growths and.
I think people get them on their feet from walking on stony ground or something for long periods of time.
Okay, I can see that. So he catches her eye. She sees him. Now I would imagine she sees him and goes, ooh. His fraudulent temptation thus began. Here we go. The meat of the fall. Wonder not, sovereign mistress, if perhaps thou canst, who art sole wonder, much less arm thy looks, the heaven of mildness, with disdain, displeased that I approach thee thus, and gaze insatiate. I thus single, nor have feared thy awful brow, more awful thus retired. Fairest resemblance of thy maker fair, thee all things living gaze on, all things thine by gift, and thy celestial beauty adore with ravishment beheld. There best beheld, where universally admired, but here in this enclosure wild, these beasts among beholders rude, and shallow to discern half what in thee is fair, one man except, who sees thee. And what is one? Who should be seen a goddess among gods, adored and served by angels numberless, thy daily train? A little flattery goes a long way. Like the next line, so glozed the tempter. Yeah, so glows, so compliments her. 549 to 556, Satan compliments her and his words impact Eve. She isn't shocked that a serpent speaks, but doubts the emotion she feels. She asks how he came to speak and be so friendly.
That's so funny to me when that came up. I read that and I thought.
You're not the first person to say that to me.
Hilarious. Yeah.
To whom the guileful tempter thus replied, Empress of this fair world, resplendent Eve, easy to me it is to tell thee all what thou commandest, and right thou shouldst be obeyed. I was at first as other beasts that graze the trodden herb, of abject thoughts and low, as was my food, nor aught but food discerned or sex, and apprehended nothing high, till on a day roving the field, I chanced a goodly tree far distant to behold, loaden with fruit of fairest colors mixed, ruddy and gold. I nearer drew to gaze. So basically, hey, I found this tree. I ate from the tree, and boom, I could reason like a man. And she went, really? 613 to 642. Yes.
So in line 585, it says, of tasting of those apples, or those fair apples. Is Paradise Lost where we get the idea that the forbidden fruit was an apple?
That is a really good question and not one I looked up.
I was just curious because, like, in the Bible, obviously, it doesn't say
it says fruit.
This is fruit.
Yeah.
But like now, it's obvious. Like everyone's like, yeah, it's an apple. Is this like in the same way that Dante kind of shaped our thoughts about heaven and hell and like kind of the Catholic ideas of purgatory and whatnot? Especially like our ideas of like demons.
Well, he didn't shape those ideas. They were presented by the cat. He just
like
described them in a certain way. Yeah.
But like the idea of like the red horned demon with the spade tail, like that kind of comes from Dante.
I think so, yeah.
And I'm wondering if Paradise Lost is where we get the apple.
That's entirely possible. I mean, 1674. I don't know who would have called it an apple before that, but I mean, I'll look into that and see what I can find. 613 to 642. So spoke the spirited sly snake. Eve, more amazed and unafraid, replied. She says that he's flattering her too much. She asks where this special tree is. The snake replies that the way is easy and offers to guide her there. He led her on a circuitous route. Why not take her directly? Yeah. If he took her right to it, it would be too obvious where he was going. And she probably would have gone, now hold the phone. But instead, they kind of go around here. He talks about going through bogs, ponds, pools, thickets, far from help. Like how he calls him the wily adder. (643 to 645). So glistered the dire snake, and into fraud led Eve, our credulous mother, to the tree of prohibition, root of all our woe. It's pretty obvious what's saying here. Which when she saw, she spoke to the snake, serpent. She says, Serpent, we might have spared our coming hither, fruitless to me, though fruit be here to excess, the credit of whose virtue rests with thee. Wondrous indeed, if cause of such effects. But of this tree we may not taste or touch. God so commanded, and left that command sole daughter of his voice. The rest we live law to ourselves. Our reason is our law. So she says, hold on, I know this tree. We're not supposed to eat this. To whom the tempter guilefully replied, Indeed, hath God then said that of the fruit of all these garden trees ye shall not eat, yet lords declare of all in earth or air? He's like, really? He said, weren't you declared the law, the Lord of everything here? Was she? Adam was. Eve wasn't. as I said before, a little flattery goes a long way. To whom thus Eve, yet sinless, interesting to point that out, of the fruit of each tree in the garden we may eat, but of the fruit of this fair tree amidst the garden, God has said, ye shall not eat thereof, nor shall ye touch it, lest ye die. So this is a mirror of what's been going on in Genesis 3. And again, God didn't say you couldn't touch it. He just said you couldn't eat it. So she's throwing a little legalism in there. Uh, 665 to 658. Satan replies, indeed. Well, we said that. Was she? 659 to 663. Yeah. So she then reiterates, we can eat anything. 664 to 678. Satan speaks with growing confidence and excitement. Oh, I've got her now. Oh, sacred, wise, and wisdom-giving plant, mother of science. What's he doing? No. Yeah, he's praising the tree. He's basically going, oh, great and wise tree. He's a druid. Now I feel thy power within me clear, not only to discern things and their causes, but to trace the ways of highest agents, deemed however wise. Queen of this universe, do not believe those rigid threats of death, yet ye shall not die. How should you? By the fruit? It gives you life to knowledge. By the threatener? Look on me, who have touched and tasted. Yet both live, and life more perfect have attained than fate meant me, by venturing higher than my lot. Shall that be shut to man, which the beast is open? Or will God incense his ire for such a petty trespass? So basically he's saying, hey, look at me. I'm not dead, and I'm smart. He basically preys on her dissatisfaction, which she didn't have before, but he's kind of percolating it. I'm not going to go through all this in the interest of time, but basically, he says, what can your knowledge hurt him? Or what can this tree give away against his will if all is his? Or is it envy? Can envy dwell in a heavenly heart? These and many more causes suggest the urgency of your need for this delicious fruit. God as human, reach then and freely taste. His last argument basically suggests that God is not the creator of all things.
I think it's interesting in 698, just before that it says, to happier life, knowledge of good and evil, of good how just, of evil if what is evil be real. So that just that idea of like, you don't even know if evil's real. It's not real.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
What is death? Who knows what death is? Come on. Be a sport. Eat the fruit. Pausing a while, thus to herself she mused. Great are thy virtues, doubtless, best of fruits. What's she doing?
Thinking about
She's-
contemplating it.
Yeah, she's praising the tree.
Oh,
The fruit, I guess. Best of fruits, though kept from man and worthy to be admired, whose taste too long forborne, at first essay gave elocution to the mute, and taught the tongue not made for speech to speak thy praise. Thy praise he also, who forbids thy use, conceals not from us, naming thee the tree of knowledge, knowledge of both good and evil, forbids us then to taste, but his forbidding commends thee more, while it infers the good by thee communicated, and our want. Whoa, this is some pretty high thought here. So at this point, Satan goes, if he had hands, I got her now. She's kind of going, on the one hand, but on the other hand, She goes back and forth, and it's more on the positive side of eating than on the alleged negative side of obedience. 780 to 794. So saying, her rash hand in evil hour forth reaching to the fruit, she plucked, she eat. The evil hour. It's pretty obvious. She goes, boop, crunch. She eats. Earth felt the wound, and nature from her seat, sighing through all her works, gave signs of woe that all was lost. Oof. And immediately back to the thicket slunk the guilty serpent, and well might, for Eve, intent now wholly on her taste, naught else regarded, such delight till then as seemed in fruit she never tasted, whether true or fancied so, through expectation high of knowledge. Not was Godhead from her thought. So she basically goes, whoa, and then she starts gorging herself on the fruit. She doesn't take one bite. She basically gets this fruit, and all of a sudden, it's all she can think about. And she gorges herself without restraint and did not know that she was eating death. Yikes. 795 to 805. O sovereign, virtuous, precious of all trees in paradise. Here we go again. Of operation blessed to sapience hitherto obscured, infamed. And thy fair fruit let hang, as to no end created. But henceforth my early care, not without song, each morning and due praise shall tend thee, and the fertile burden ease of thy full branches. What's she doing? She's fallen in love with the tree. And she says, oh, you're the precious of all trees. Every morning I'm going to come out, and I'm going to take care of you, and I'm going to feed you, and I'm going to prune your dead branches. I'm going to do all this for you. And Satan's going away going, got you now. She says, till dieted by thee, I grow mature in knowledge as the gods who know all things. Yeesh. 805 to 810, more praise to the tree. 811 to 833, he says, or she says, and maybe no one knows. Heaven is far away, too remote to see everything that happens on earth, and God may have been distracted by other issues, safe with his spies all around him. But how should I appear to Adam? Should I let him know about the change within me and give him the fruit so that he could be in total happiness with me? Or maybe not. And keep this power of knowledge to myself without a partner. Whoa, when sin starts, it really kicks up the gas here. This will add to my sex what was lacking and make myself more attractive to him and make me more his equal. And maybe a thing more desirable is sometimes superior to Adam. For an inferior who is free may be good. But what if God has seen and death is the result? She now understands death. Then I will be no more, and Adam will be married to another Eve and enjoy life with her, and I will be extinct. To think of death, okay, then I should share this with Adam. Whether it results in happiness or sadness. I love him so much that with him I can endure all deaths, since without him I have no life. Wow. She's saying, okay, now I could keep this from him and be superior. And who doesn't like something that's better than himself? But if I die, I know I'll share it with Adam. That is some warped logic.
The Pandora's box is now open.
Yes. 834 to 838. So saying, from the tree her step she turned, but first, low reverence done. As to the power that dwelt within, whose presence had infused into the plant sciential sap, derived from nectar, drink of gods. Meanwhile, Adam, the while, waiting desirous her return, had woven of choicest flowers a garland to adorn her tresses, her rural labor's crown, as reapers oft are wont their harvest queen. So while she's off sinning, he's going, I'm going to make her this flower that she can put on her head. She's going to be beautiful. This is so great. And everybody said, oh.
So sad. It broke my heart when I read it.
Let's see.
What was interesting too, is obviously it's so warped what she's thinking at the beginning when she first speaks it, but it's also the first time that she ever can really envision life without Adam. And all of a sudden, she's like, I can't live without you. I need you to come with me. Where Adam,
Whether we live or die.
yeah, whether we live or die. And Adam at the beginning is like, you're my life. I love you so much. Can't live without you. And she's kind of doesn't understand or even a little annoyed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny that Eve is like, she's very independent up until that moment.
And she's like, come with me.
Yeah, she's like, no, you have to come with me.
So there's a next section. So Eve speaks to Adam and wonders why he doesn't wonder why she's so late. Weren't you worried? She says, I missed you, and I thought that I had been deprived of your presence far too long. I never felt the agony of love until now, and I won't feel it again. I never meant to try and rashly wanted to try what I have never tried, which is the pain of being separated from you. Yeah. Hogwash. We skip down a little bit. She says, my eyes are more open, having had dim, diluted vision and open heart and growing up to be like God, which I wanted you to do, since without you, I would hate being this way. For happiness, as you taking part to me is happiness. Unshared with you, it would soon be tedious and unpleasant. So me with my intellect, if I just talked to you, it'd be like you talking to a goat. It would be tedious. So you should eat, because he brings the fruit. She tears up the tree and she brings a whole bough full of fruit to him. And she goes, here. And she says, unless you don't eat and separate us, making us unequal, then you would regret giving up being like a god, since fate won't allow us to be together. So if you don't eat, we can't be together. If you do eat, we're good. 889 to 886 to 893, Eve says this casually, but her cheeks flushed red. Adam stood there amazed at her fatal decision and felt a cold chill run through his veins and stood still astonished, and his face and his shoulders droop. If you can picture this, he goes, she explains, he goes, ooh, and drops the crown of flowers to the ground. That is sad. Adam was speechless and pale. Actually, at the end, 891 or 892, 890, from his slack hand, the garland wreath for Eve down dropped, and all the faded roses shed. That's so sad. 894 and 895, speechless he stood and pale, till thus at length first to himself he inward silence broke. So he's kind of go, hold on. Oh, most beautiful in all creation, last and best of God's works, creature who surpasses whatever sight or thought I could imagine, holy, divine, good, amiable, or sweet, you are so lost. And it happened so fast that you were defaced, deflowered, and now devoted to death. How did you agree to break the strict rule, to ridicule, to violate the sacred fruit that was forbidden to us? The enemy has tricked you with some cursed lie, yet unknown, and you have ruined me with you, since with you I am resolved that we will die together. How can I live without you? How can I forego our sweet conversations and our love so dearly enjoined to live in these wild woods so sadly? If God should create another Eve and I have another spare rib, the loss of you would never leave my heart. No, no, I feel the connection with nature draw me because you are flesh of my flesh, bone of my bone, and from you and your condition I will never be parted, whether in happiness or sadness. He's made his choice.
What a lament.
Yeah, he basically is like, "Ugh."
I know.
But he also realizes if I don't eat and she dies, I get another Eve. Would you call her Eve 2?
Can he spare another
Well, and that's
reason?
what he's saying. Do I have another one to spare?
Is it
Well,
almost
there must
like-
be because you got an odd one over here, so now you take one from your balanced.
Is he kind of like, I don't think this might be true, but I thought about it. Is he, does he have a little tinge of forgiveness toward her because he wants to be with her, so he's justifying it? Is it what?
It's innocence, I think.
Yeah.
He sees what he might lose and he can't stand it, not really thinking through because he doesn't have the knowledge that she has. Adam spoke.
Enamored by her.
Yeah, well, she's still beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, although he does say she's been deflowered. Let's see, 9:17 to 9:20. Adam speaks calmly to Eve, comforted after his initial dismay, realizing there was no good solution to this problem. 9:21 to 9:26. Adam says, "You have boldly presumed much, adventurous Eve, and provoked a great peril to whom you have dared. Had it only been pleasant to look on that sacred fruit, sacred not to eat, much worse to taste it under a ban not to touch. But who remembers the past or can undo it? He made a mistake in there. God never said you can't touch it. But he's bought into the whole legalism thing." 9:27 to 9:37, Adam runs through the possible outcomes. 9:38 to 9:51, Adam goes through the logic of God destroying his prime creations and thinks through what Satan would say if God destroyed them. 9:52 to 9:59, we're going a little bit over, but I hope it's okay. We're almost there. However, I with thee have fixed my lot, certain to undergo like doom. I'm going to do it. We're going to share this fate together. We are one flesh. To lose you would be to lose myself. 960 to 993, Eve replies, "You are my role model." She praises him for being so devoted and sealing their fates together. She hugs him for joy and cries. She weeps. She feels so loved that he would incur divine displeasure on her behalf. It's actually not on her behalf because he's not going to take it for her. They're both going to get it. 994 to 1016, to compensate him for his sacrifice, she holds out the bough of fruit to him. He hesitates against his better judgment, but not deceived, but overcome by female charm. The earth trembled from her interior as if in pain again, and nature gave a second groan. The sky darkened and thunder rolled, and sad drops of rain fell at the completion of the mortal original sin. Adam, though thought nothing of eating until he was full. And neither did Eve if she repeated her previous trespass. She ate with him, eating her fill. So they both gorged themselves on the fruit. And now, as if drunk on new wine, they were immersed in amused laughter and claimed they felt divinity within them, growing wings with which to leave the earth. So it makes them drunk. But the false fruit's joy gave way to carnal desire rising up. He began to give Eve lascivious looks, and she returned them, and in burning lust until Adam made his move. It says that. Till Adam thus gan Eve to dalliance move. He made his move. 1017 to 1036, Adam compliments Eve. He's got to do that first, right? He says she's more beautiful now than ever before. He looked at her with love and playfulness, and she understood, and her eyes burned for him. 10:37 to 10:55, he grabbed her hand and led her to a shady riverbank thickly covered with trees. He led her without reluctance. Flowers were their cushions, pansies, violets, asphodels, and hyacinth, earth's freshest, softest cushion. There they had their fill of love and love's enjoyment, taking largely of their mutual guilt as a seal, the comfort of their sin. They continued until early morning when sleep came over them, weary of their amorous play, and the influence of the false fruit wore off. Their sleep was different, troubled, and woke them up. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
They rose, looked at each other, and found their eyes truly opened, their minds darkened. Innocence, as a veil that kept them from knowing evil, was gone. Whew. Yikes. 10:56 to 10:66. They felt shame for the first time, and Adam tried to cover himself but failed. They sat silent for a long time until Adam speaks. Almost at the end. 10:67 to 10:98. Oh, Eve, it was an evil thing to listen to that lying serpent or whoever taught him to fake a man's voice. It is true that we have fallen, but we have not risen as you were told. Since our eyes are opened, we find we know good and evil. Good is lost, and we have acquired evil. It's the bad fruit of knowledge to know this. It leaves us naked, void of honor, of innocence, of purity. Our unmentionables now soiled and stained. In our faces is the evidence of our strong sexual desire. Evil is the source of this, even shame, the last of evils. But be certain of the first. How can I look in the face of God or angels, which I often looked at with joy and rapture? The heavenly visitors will shine even brighter with their light unbearably bright. Oh, if only I could live a solitary life in the wild, hidden in some glade where the tallest trees, impenetrable to star or sunlight, spread their annoying light out, making it dark as the evening. Cover me, pine trees, cedars with infinite branches hide me, where I may never see them any more. But in this bad situation, let's figure out the best way to hide our parts from each other that seem to be obnoxious for our shame and the least attractive to see. Some tree whose broad, smooth leaves can be sewn together and wrapped or draped over our loins to cover around our middle parts so that this newcomer, shame, will not be obvious and call us unclean. Ooh. Why is shame the last of evils? You have to do something to feel shame. It's the result. 1099 to 1118. Ooh, almost done. They went into the forest, found a fig tree with large leaves, sewed them together to make a vain covering. They put them on as if to hide their guilt and shame. 1119 to 1125, now covered as though their shame was in part was covered, but it didn't ease their minds. They sat down and wept. Not just tears, but passions rose within them: anger, hate, mistrust, suspicion, discord. This shook their state of mind, formerly calm and peaceful, now tossed and turbulent. Their emotions ruled them. Adam looks at Eve differently. He broke the silence and started to talk. 1134 to 1142, he basically says, you should have listened to me. We should have stayed together. Eve, feeling the weight of blame, responds, that was severe. You blame me for my actions or my will to wander, as you call it, but who knows? The same might have happened to you alone, perhaps. Had you been there or heard the temptation, you wouldn't have been able to discern any lies in the serpent, speaking as he did. There was no foundation of enmity between us. So why would he wish me bad things or seek to hurt me? Was I never supposed to leave your side? It would be better to live as a lifeless rib. Oh, wow. Being as I am, why didn't you, as the head, command me absolutely not to go, heading into danger, as you said? She's basically saying it was your job. You were too easily influenced by a little argument. No, You permitted me, approved, and fairly dismissed me. Had you been firm and fixed in your dissent, I wouldn't have transgressed, and neither would you. Ooh, turn it around. 1162 to 1189, Adam's really mad now. Is this the love, the compensation that I get from you, ungrateful Eve? You said you wouldn't change when you were alone, not me. I could have lived and enjoyed immortal happiness, but I willingly chose death with you. And now you will find fault in me as the cause of your transgression. You didn't restrain your severity either, it seems. What more could I have done? I warned you, I admonished you, foretold the danger from the enemy. Forcing my will upon you has no place here. But confidently you went forth, secure that you would meet no danger or find a glorious test. Maybe I did make a mistake by overestimating your perfections, that I thought no evil would dare tempt you. But I regret that error now, which has become my crime, and you the accuser. And so it falls on him who overtrusts woman, lets her will rule. She won't allow restraint, and left to herself, if evil then occurs, she will then accuse him because of his weak indulgence. Oh, yeah.
First divorce.
Okay, we're at the end. Here we go. The last bit. Thus it shall befall him who to worth in women over trusting lesser will rule. Restraints she will not brook, and left to herself if evil thence ensue, she first his weak indulgence will accuse. Thus they in mutual accusation spent the fruitless hours. That's funny. But neither self-condemning, and of their vain contest appeared no end. So at the end of this, they just kept accusing each other back and forth for hours and hours and hours, never accepting blame on themselves. So what do you think of book 9?
Oh, how tragic. That's so sad. You know, one thing, another thing that I get out of this is, reading the Bible, it just, the series of events just follow, boom, boom, boom. But this leads you to contemplate that this just didn't happen as quickly as we read it in the Word of God. This is something that happened over a span of time.
Yeah, when you read Genesis, you kind of think, okay, there's creation, Adam, Eve, and right away the fall.
Yes, yes,
Well, there was probably some time
exactly.
until Satan goes, gotcha now.
Mhm.
I think it's funny where he says the fruitless hours.
Yes, exactly. That's
So, double meaning there, but of course, they never got anywhere. They just kept arguing. And in the next chapter, it starts with them. I think they just wake up. Yeah, we'll get into that. But yeah, that's book 9. That's the climax. And you can see right away how as soon as they sin, division, anger, distrust, all those things from Pandora's box kind of just pop up
yes.
just between them. What would have been their best action? Immediate repentance would have been benefit. It wouldn't have helped. I mean, it would have helped a little, I think. But I mean, they did what they were told not to do. So the best thing would be to repent, apologize, basically say, God, I'm sorry. What can we do? That's not on their heart, though.
Right. And mine is.
It's all about whose fault it is. So, any other questions, comments, observations?
Is it too big a stretch as we kind of overlay Milton's life into this narrative? That the virtuous aspects of Adam, he's trying to reflect as the virtuous aspects of Milton.
I don't think that's too far a stretch.
Okay.
He, by all accounts, he was a little bit full of himself, with some justification, but I mean, a little too much maybe. So yeah, I could see him in this picture a little bit. So, okay, that is the end of book 9. So, if you have questions, comments, or anything you want to bring up, feel free to text or email. So,
This book 10 or 2 books?
10 and 11 for next week.
10 and 11.
Next week is, let's see, today is what, the 15th?
Yes.
So next week is the
Have one
22nd.
next week, but then
And then the week after, I won't be available. So then we'll finish up on election night. So, okay. Thank you all.
thank you.